This is Hard Parking, brought to you by Right Honda and Right Toyota out of Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm your host, Jhae Pfenning, recording from my studio here in Gilbert, Arizona. A lot of stuff to get to today. I went to a Puerto Rican festival. Barrett-Jackson is in town this week. I did not go. I'll tell you why. Texas barely won a game. I'm not going to get into sports. That's for Q. And I asked you guys on social media, specifically on Facebook, and I think Instagram, but I forgot to check to see if anyone even responded on Instagram. Probably not. I should probably check that. But I'm going to get to your questions. And it's also, the funny thing is when I ask people to ask me questions, and I get some really good questions, but it's always a clear indicator of who listens to the show on a regular basis and who doesn't. Because a lot of times I get questions, and it's about certain things that I've talked about on the show. And not only do I talk about it on the show, but I've definitely talked about it more than once. But there's still good questions, and you may be a new listener to the show, and you didn't get to those episodes, or you may be a random listener to the show, or maybe you're just part of Hard Parking Violations because it's a fun page. Shout out to my page, Hard Parking Violations on Facebook. It's a fun group, and you just don't listen to the show. But you're also the same person that says, "Hey man, how's the podcast going? I don't listen. Thanks." Anyway, all that and more coming up after this word from Marcus Foundry, SparkForge. So quick story for you. A listener lost a big job, missed the call, never saw the DM, probably because he was listening to this podcast. It happens, and it's fixable. Running a business shouldn't mean juggling a dozen apps and missing opportunities. SparkForge helps you reply faster, capture more leads, and get more reviews, all without adding hours to your day. One simple place to handle calls, texts, and social messages so you can focus on the work that pays. It's like finally putting your business on cruise control without losing the steering wheel. One login, one platform, all under your control. Consolidate your tech in one place to save time, money, and headache. The future is here, and it's powered by SparkForge AI from our friends at Marcus Foundry. Jump into a 30-day trial today by using code HARDPARKED at getsparkforge.ai and stop letting yesterday's tech eat tomorrow's profits. Like I said in the opening, Barrett-Jackson week was here. I did not go. I went last fall. So starting last year, they decided to do a show in the fall as well as the big one in the winter, which is always in January. And the January one is the one that is the big one that you typically see on TV. I think the fall one may have been on TV too. I know this is only their second year. Last year, I worked the Future Collector Car Show. Speaking of Future Collector Car Show, I've talked about it before on the podcast. That's where through my friend Rebecca and even Mimi the first year, I was given an opportunity to go up there and basically be the MC or co-MC on stage for about 8 hours, I think is the length of the show. And it's Future Collector Car Show was a good thing that happened for a long time. I was only able to attend a few of them before I was the MC. About a year ago, 2 years ago, year and a half ago, Barrett-Jackson, I think they bought it. And Rebecca was working as maybe a consultant. I don't know the details of that. I never really asked. But the January show, it was there twice, and it was the fall show once. I think that's correct. And so I was a part of that, and it was great. But a year ago, we had the show. They did not have one in this past January. And I believe if Rebecca's post on Facebook is 100% accurate, there is no more Future Collector Car Show. And that's really unfortunate. That was one of the up-and-coming car events, car shows in the area. Because you have Barrett-Jackson, you have the Arizona Concours, and then you have the Fountain Hills event, which isn't really a car show. I mean, there's winners there, but I would argue that all of those winners are predetermined. There's hundreds of cars, and they're only looking at maybe 10 of them. But that's more of a charity thing, so it doesn't really matter. But the thing that the Future Collector Car Show brought to the area was an opportunity for a lot of the modern to maybe 2000s, late 90s cars. Because when you think about classic cars, you think about this old 57 Chevy, and you think about maybe the 70s cars and now maybe 80s cars, but you don't really think about 90s and 2000s cars as classic. But here we are in 2025, and we're staring down the barrel of over 20 years old. Some of them are 30, some of them are 40 years old at this point. And so it kind of gave people an opportunity to showcase vehicles that are future classics or future collector cars. So you could show up with like a special edition Pontiac Grand Am or a Grand Prix GTP, I think maybe. Something like that. Hopefully you know what I'm saying. Or you could actually bring a really nice Ford Probe GT, I don't know, some sort of a super spec that never existed before, like a Shelby Ford Probe GT. I don't think that even exists in real life. But it was an excellent show. And then when it became part of Barrett-Jackson, it was even better because now you're partnered up with a big brand, but that's always a little dangerous too because no one really knew what the future of that show was going to be. And it looks like it is just completely done. And it's too bad. You know, I won, and that's how I met Fielding Shredder, who's been on the show a couple of times, and he's on Netflix's Hyperdrive, the Drift Show, the Drift Elimination Show, Grassroots, great guy. I love Fielding Shredder. He judged my car, and at the time it was in 5th place, and he went and he grabbed all the other judges. He brought them back to my car, and he showed them everything that I had talked to him about. I ended up getting 2nd place in Best Modified, which was awesome, and it's because of Fielding Shredder. And I have that trophy over there. I have an autographed picture from Fielding Shredder over there, and you know, there's no other show I would have entered in Arizona that I would have won that award for that build. And that was my old Robotech build. So rest in peace to a future collector car show. But again, I didn't go to Barrett-Jackson. It's a smaller show, and I like to support local things. But you know, I've heard through the grapevine when they kind of partner up with shows, it's to basically destroy the shows because it's competition. The reality is it wasn't competition at all, and I think that Barrett-Jackson missed out on a huge opportunity because they could have taken what that was, the Future Collector Car Show, and they could have showcased the winners of each year up at the auction for an entire week. Because I have friends that come into town for Barrett-Jackson, and they're like, "Hey Jay, when are you going to go up on stage? Hey Jay, when's the Future Collector Car Show?" I go, "Oh, you missed it. It was one day. Even though the auction was a full week, it was one day. And if you didn't show up there on that day, then you just lost out." So they should have at least kept. And my car wouldn't have even been my car would not have even been eligible anyway because I never won 1st place. But there were some damn fine cars that was winning, and there were things from Renaults to S2000s, cars that otherwise, I mean, Miatas, they were just so beautifully done and perfectly done, and there was just no place for them in any other Arizona-based car show like that. I guess I'm talking about FCCS again. I didn't mean to. But anyway, I didn't go to Barrett-Jackson. I do plan on going in January. Hopefully my cousin comes up here. I've invited Dwayne to come up here. And I think last time I applied to be a bidder, never planned on buying anything, but I just kind of wanted that experience because $600 to become a bidder. You get a bidder's pass, you get a guest pass, you get 10 drinks a day on those passes. So that's 20 drinks combined, and you can go every day. It's not just for Friday or Thursday morning. You can go every day. And so you kind of get your money's worth when you're comparing that to how much you would normally pay if you were to party every day. Like, who does that anyway? But if you were to party every day, all day at some convention, and you were paying out of pocket, you would blow past $600 worth of booze. I can promise you that in the course of a week. But I'm definitely going to go in January. I just went to a Cleannuff event. You guys know we had Charles Warden on here a couple years ago. He has the group Cleannuff. He hasn't done anything in a long time. He's been getting his life straight, taking care of some things. But this was a big event. This was held at Houston's Hot Chicken, Dave's Hot Chicken, one of those hot chicken places in Tempe. But Strad Pizza kind of promoted it. And so they brought the Strad Jeep out. James Stradman was there, and a few other big notable people around the area. So you just had a parking lot packed with, James drove his Koenigsegg. You had all these Lamborghinis and a few Ferraris and all these other, really nice, unique Porsches. Not a lot of JDM. I was there, of course, with my NSX. My friend was there with his super nice MK4 Supra. And other than that, most of the cars were just kind of they were modified high-end exotics, or they were just kind of bone stock, buy them and drive them to the local car show. But it was good. It was great to see Charles, and I plan on having him back in studio because it's been a while since he's been in here. Great guy, and I'm excited to see what he's got, what he's been kind of doing. Some events coming up. I'm going to get to your questions in a second, but we've postponed our annual United Food Bank OneLess event. One of our main organizers has some health issues, and it got to be kind of late to plan. I mean, potential sponsors have money they have to free up. I don't know if that's a great reason, but the big thing that made that show work the last 2 years was getting approval to do it at the Courtyards parking lot. And we didn't push forward to get that done this year yet. And so even if we were to, I mean, there's still plenty of time to plan the show and have the show, but we may not have a giant parking lot to host the show. And of course, that is the number one thing. So looking forward to announcing whenever that's going to be in 2026. I believe it's going to be at some point in their first quarter. It's going to have to be, or else people are going to melt, because come April, things get really hot outside. This next weekend, we do have an event. I've partnered up with ELG Accident Attorneys, Sergio Escamilla, who's also been on the show. It's been a couple of years since he's been on. I need to have him back in the studio, or I need to go to his place. But he was the title sponsor of OneLess the last couple of years. And I called him and said, hey, we're not doing OneLess, but I would love to do something with you guys. And so we have One Auto on board with ELG, a local motorcycle group, a lot of rockets is what we like to call them, right? Crotch rockets. So they're going to show up. There's going to be a ton of them, the Ducati Club. But I'd asked if we can kind of join that with cars and also bring in St. Mary's Food Bank. So that's going to happen October 25th. It's one of those deals where I have to decide, do we want to go to Schnepp Farms with the kids, the grandkids, to do all the Halloween stuff? But I also wanted to do some sort of a charity thing, and so I can't do both. So I'm going to do the charity thing with One Auto. Schnepp Farms is cool, but really at the end of the day, we're building memories for us, not for the kids, because most of them are too young anyway, and they just drag you around a bounce house to bounce house. And if the place didn't serve beer and wine, it would be very not interesting, put it that way. We usually go out there for Christmas as well, and it's freezing, believe it or not, because it gets down to 40, mid to low 40s. Even in Arizona, it feels really cold when it was just 75 during the day. Oh, by the way, the event is going to be held at Strad Pizza, like the actual Strad Pizza. It's my first time going there. I talked to one of the co-owners, Mr. Freddie Wynn. Great guy. He's a kind of we've talked. I met him years ago, and I've talked about having him on the show. We just never made it happen. And we had a mutual friend introduce us at a party. It was an F1 watch party. Wasn't a lot of people there. That's where I met Jordan. I met Jordan before that, not Michael Jordan. Jordan, low baller GTR Jordan. And I'd met him prior to that, but that's the first time we really talked. And even that was years ago. But my mutual friend said, hey, Freddie, this is Jhae, Freddie, you guys need to talk. And so I was like, cool, right? But then nothing ever came of that. And I've always wondered, maybe my plan for this podcast just wasn't good enough. It wasn't worth their time or his time to look into it more, because he's a big deal. He owns a few brands. He does marketing. He's the partner with James Stradman for Strad Pizza. He makes stuff happen. There's a lot of stuff, and we just never got that hooked up. We never got together for a podcast. But every time I see him, it's great. You feel like he's your brother from another mother. And, running him to him this weekend was great. We're going to make it happen. I'm going to get up there and record probably at the Hub is what they call it. I think they have like a studio space up there next to Strad Pizza. But, I'm really looking forward to that. Let's get to your questions. So Jamie Red Goodman asked me a question. A friend of the show. I used to use his sound drop talking about the Arby's at the end. I haven't used that in a long time, especially since I've gone to full video. But it is kind of funny, and I was on his show a long time ago. He's one of the moderators, admins on hard parking violations, and he drives me crazy a lot with his political stuff because we don't see eye to eye politically. But that's okay. Thoughts on Amazon bringing the Mass Effect games to the small screen? I know we're both big Mass Effect fans, so obviously I'm hopeful. So for those of you who don't know, Mass Effect is a video game series. I want to say it's the first one came out in early maybe mid 2000s. I don't know when the first Mass Effect came out. I want to say 2005 or 2006 for the Xbox, maybe multi-platform. My son used to play it. I never played it at the time, but eventually I played the trailer for Mass Effect 3, and I was so hooked that I pre-ordered Mass Effect 3 and bought Mass Effect 2, and it just became like one of my favorite games ever. So what is Mass Effect? It's a third-person game where you're kind of following your character around. You're not first person where you can't see your character. It's third person. So you're following your character around and you go through all these decisions, and you go through space, and you got to stop this planet from being destroyed, and you have to go around and talk and recruit all these different people. But the thing is, your actions have consequences. And the thing that blew my mind about the game is that it would carry over to the next title. So if you uploaded your save data, then all the decisions you made in Mass Effect 2 would have an impact on how Mass Effect 3 played out for your character. Not only for the things that you have, but for the NPCs, the other computer characters you interact with. That data is uploaded, so they know if you decided to detonate the starship. I don't know what that's, but that's just an example, right? So they know that in Mass Effect 2, if you decided to detonate the starship to save your friends, but you ended up destroying a planet, so all your decisions have consequences, or you would have saved the planet and destroyed your friends. They would be kind of one of those deals. But that game was heavy, and I loved the game. And it was one of those games where it kind of made you question yourself a little bit because it's so immersive. I've always envied people who could play video games just like mindlessly. Like if you play a game and it's like, okay, you have to make a decision. Do you want to help this person and give them money, or do you want to tell them to screw off? And some people are okay with pulling out a gun and shooting people in video games, just shooting them. And I can't do that. I'm just like, oh, I know it's just a game, but damn, what would I do in real life? Would I give them money, or would I send them on their way? Or would I just randomly decide to kill them in a video game because it doesn't mean anything? But Mass Effect kind of challenged me to be me. It kind of plays with your psyche a little bit. It's like, okay, if I can recruit all these people and get everyone home safe at the end of Mass Effect 3, that means I'm a good leader. That makes me a good leader. That means I have good leadership. But if I sit there and let my friend die because he's sick in the game and I don't see him again, and then I have to go do these other things, again, I may have saved something and beat the mission, but I lost a computer friend. And it's weird, man. It really hurts. But anyway, so I had to do some research on a lot of these questions. So rumored last year, November 2024, there was rumors that they were going to make a Mass Effect TV show, Amazon. When I did some research, it looks like it was kind of kicked up 4 years ago. 4 years ago, they secured the rights to make it. They just haven't done anything yet. And it looks like they're going to start filming the fourth quarter of 2026. So basically next year at this time, they're going to start filming. So I did some research. The most recent Mass Effect game, Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which was basically a remastering version of the original 3 games, was released in May of 2021. It's 2025. Supposedly they're working on another title, but the thing that I think makes Fallout, I don't know if you've seen Fallout on Amazon, but the thing that makes Fallout successful is they're still pumping out games or updates to their Fallout video game. And the Fallout video game, all the Fallout stuff is so pop culture. I mean, I have a ton of Fallout shit here, and I don't even have time to play video games. I got a ton of Fallout stuff over there. That's what this is. This is a Fallout Pip-Boy is what they call it. You're wearing it on your waist, and it takes all your vitals, and it's in the video game. It's in the TV show. Like I love Fallout, but it's because they keep releasing stuff, and you can just constantly buy stuff. It keeps it fresh. And then they made this super witty television series on Amazon Prime. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's a little quirky, dark humor, but I love it. And season 2 comes out in a couple months. But anyway, what made that great is they kept relative content. And I don't know what Mass Effect would do, because there was a movie that came out called Valerian. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but when I saw the previews for Valerian, actually I pulled it up over here. Valerian came out in 2017. When I saw the previews of that, I swear that was Mass Effect. I go, holy shit, they made a Mass Effect movie. Except it wasn't. It was a movie called Valerian. And it's just like Mass Effect, the video game. So I don't know what they would make on a TV series, because it feels cookie cutter, like Andromeda, which I used to watch all the time. Valerian, the space adventure with different, creatures that aren't necessarily human. I don't know how they would do it, but hell yeah, I'm excited about it. Next question, Jeff Coda, the effective loss of the CAFE laws and future of internal combustion vehicles. And my thought was, is there a question there? It's not a question. Jeff is basically asking me to comment on it, which isn't a question. But instead of being a dick, I decided to look it up a little bit, because I'm like, what's CAFE? What it is that's the corporate average of fuel economies standards, often referred to as the CAFE laws, which was enacted by Congress in 1975 as part of the Energy Policy and Conservation Act, EPCA. In direct response to the 73-74 Arab oil embargo, which highlighted the nation's vulnerability to oil supply disruptions, the standards aim to reduce fuel consumption, promote energy conservation, and decrease dependence of imported oil. So basically, think about your EPA, better emissions, better fuel economy efficiency. But I know there's actually been a lot of controversy with this, and when it comes to CAFE standards for passenger vehicles, the Big Beautiful Bill eliminated that. In July of 2025, Congress passed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which you all have heard about, which eliminated civil penalties for non-compliance with CAFE standards for passenger cars and light trucks, effective model years 2027 and beyond. So 2 years from now, not 25, not 26, but 2027 and beyond, the standards themselves remained in place, along with reporting requirements, but without fines. Previously, they were getting fined up to $51,000 per vehicle in some cases. Enforcement effectively weakened penalties for medium and heavy-duty trucks not affected. This could lead to reduced incentives for automakers to invest in efficiency, potentially reshaping the market by lowering costs but increasing fuel consumption. So, the future of ICE, internal combustion vehicles, ICE internal combustion engines, but internal combustion vehicles, I don't think the loss of CAFE laws is going to do anything. I think that in 1975, we made vehicles a lot differently than we do now. Incredibly inefficient. 70s vehicles, 80s vehicles, and even most of the 90s vehicles are terrible. But most of these vehicles made 2010 and newer, oil changes now are 6,000 miles apart. Before it was 3,000 miles, and people who were very neurotic about it were changing their oil every 1,500 miles. Some every 6 months, even if you've only driven 500 miles. You don't have to do that anymore. And so maybe it was just some sort of a weird way for car manufacturers to either make money or for the government to fine them. I don't think that one thing has anything to do with the other. The future of internal combustion vehicles, I think they're just going to continue to be more efficient. There's another EV question on here, and maybe I'll talk a little bit more about it when I get to it. But I don't think that the CAFE laws, the effective loss, as Jeff Coda says, of the CAFE laws is a big deal. We'll find out, but we're talking 2027 and newer. Jeff, and I know Jeff, I'm sorry. I know we've met at NS Expos. I don't remember how to pronounce your last name. Okay, HSIEA, Jeffrey H. We're gonna call you Jeffrey H. While China and Europe continue to forge ahead in EV tech, do you think the U.S. is at risk of falling behind in the future because of our anti-EV and pro-big oil legislation? I would ask, why do you think we're anti-EV and pro-big oil legislation? What are you pointing at exactly? I think I've covered this a lot when it comes to EV. Very recently, actually. You got to read the writing on the wall. Nobody was buying these things. Everybody buys Teslas. Teslas are continuously in the top 10 of all vehicles sold in the United States, and they're mostly made in the United States. So it's not a Tesla problem. Most of these other EV companies, they lose money on every vehicle they try to sell. And there's a lot of them that just aren't selling. People just don't want to buy them. And it's not because everyone is in love with the internal combustion engine. I mean, only us legit car people care about that, but we represent less than 1% of the buying market. But it's, you buy an electric car, then you have to plug it into your house. Then you have to buy a special charging unit if you want to make sure you have enough energy to make it through the night on a full charge from the next day. You go to these charge stations, 75% of them don't seem to work anymore. That's a number I pulled out of my ass. I'm not going to quote it or cite it or anything. People who buy EVs aren't really saving any money. They sold us that dream, and you can't get incentives anymore. That's going away. You can't drive in the HOV lane anymore. That's going away. But I think that had EV sales been more successful, people would be buying them, right? Well, that didn't even make sense. Had EV sales been more successful, car manufacturers would, I think they would continue to make them. And that's another question. I can't answer too much on this because literally the next question is very similar to this one. Again, people don't listen to the podcast, obviously. We need oil. We use oil to make everything, not just gasoline, everything. If you're listening to this, look around you. I guarantee you 90% of wherever it is you're listening to this to or watching this, 90% of everything around you is made from oil. So we need oil. And again, anti-EV, I don't think people aren't buying electric cars because they want to stick it to the man. They're expensive. They're very expensive. I mean, Acura, the last episode, we said that they canceled the ZDX. That's a nice car. They weren't selling them. Honda Prologue, nice car, not selling. The EV Dodge Charger, can't sell them. All right, next question. This is from our friend of the show, Ravi Tormelin. What's up, Ravi? What are your thoughts on alternative fuels such as using hydrogen cells, and how many of the manufacturers that double down on EV are now backpedaling? So think about what I just said. I think they realize that there's a couple things. No one produces enough energy to sustain these, really. Going back to Jeff's thing with China and Europe, they have a ton of EVs over there. I went to Europe last year. They're all small. They all work. They're a little different than what we're using over here. China, I don't know how much of their EV stuff is true. I know they get a lot of their power from solar, but I think they're having issues over there anyway. But regardless, we can't do it here. We don't have the grid. And I've said this before. We could put 10,000 new charge ports in every single city, brand new charge ports. We don't make enough energy to feed that. The country does not make enough energy to feed that. They have brownouts in California because they don't have enough power. So you can make every car EV, but how are you going to charge them? We just don't make enough power. Look it up. But anyway, back to Ravi's question. Sorry. I think we'll get to the hydrogen fuel cells in a second. I think that manufacturers are backpedaling because they see that nobody's buying it. Nobody has the grid, the infrastructure to support it. People want more improved hybrids. Give me a better, more efficient, higher performing, internal combustion motor, and then pack on a really nice modern EV to give it that extra power and that extra range. I've said this, my NSX is a hybrid, but it's different than like a Toyota Camry hybrid in a sense that my car, you can coast on it in EV for a very short time. You can't start it in EV unless the motor's already hot. It uses those electric motors for performance only. Whereas there's other hybrids where you can actually plug them in and you can drive 20, 30, 40 miles on EV, and then you can flip over to your gas tank and vice versa. To me, that's a true hybrid system versus using hybrid technologies that the NSX is using. But I think that's why their manufacturers are kind of backing away. I mean, Ferrari just announced their little EV, their full EV, little SUV, and they lost so many $1 billion in market cap or something crazy like that. Like, just look it up. Look up Ferrari's recent EV, and it was a fail. People don't want that. They just don't want it. If you buy a Ferrari, you want to buy a Ferrari. You don't want to buy something with a Ferrari badge if it's an EV. It just doesn't make any sense. and people are looking at that. Porsche's had some success with their Taycan, but even that in itself, the sales are probably terrible, and just nobody wants it. Specific to hydrogen, this is kind of cool. All of this stuff I'm talking about right now, there's a link in the episode description from Grok, which Grok is the AI that goes out and finds all this other information. I copy and pasted to paraphrase this. The first practical hydrogen fuel cell was developed in 1959 by British engineer Francis T. Bacon, creating a 5 kilowatt alkaline fuel cell that could power machinery. This paved the way for automotive use with General Motors unveiling the Electrovan in 1966. The world's first hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, a modified handy van that used a 32 fuel cell stack to produce up to 32 kW of power. I think it's kilowatts, I don't know. It had a range of about 120 miles, but was heavy, over 7,000 pounds, due to the fuel cell and tanks, and never entered into production due to the high cost and safety concerns with hydrogen storage. So 1966, Electrovan. So there you go. We've been dealing with this for a while. Since then, development has continued with milestones like NASA's use of fuel cells in space stations in the 1960s, prototype cars from various manufacturers in the 1990s, 2000s, and commercial models like the Toyota Mirai, M-I-R-A-I, starting in 2014. Challenges such as hydrogen production, infrastructure, and cost. I'll give you an example right now. Have slowed widespread adoption, but research persists today. In fact, in 2025, Honda introduced the CR-V FCEV. Why haven't you heard of this? Well, it's only sold in California, and it's only sold in specific places in California. And it's the world's first plug-in hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. $50,000 MSRP with crazy incentives, which includes a $15,000 hydrogen fuel card. It's very expensive to refill your car with hydrogen. This was a Honda GM collab. It's a single transmission system, 5-minute hydrogen recharge, 5 minutes to recharge the tanks. There's 2 tanks, couple hours on the standard public EV charger, a combined 270 miles of range, which is kind of cool. So our friend, John Rivers, who was just on from Drive Culture and also Honda, he did a video on this, and that link is also in the description. So be looking for that, the 2025 Honda CR-V FCEV. So that's a thing. That is a really cool thing. But, hydrogen, we hear about it and we think our car's just going to blow up. And I don't know how unstable it is. I always think of some science fiction movie where they got to handle this stuff very carefully. Or like a Terminator, that little fuel cell that the Terminator has, that it's like a small nuke when he throws it out the window and it blows up. And no one wants to be driving down the car and just have their vehicle turn into a small nuclear warhead. But I think that alternative fuels is the way to go in a hybrid type of situation where you're combining different technologies to make things just not only more efficient, but more reliable. I don't think that we're going to run out of fossil fuels anytime soon. They've been telling us this since the 1980s, maybe even the 70s. And it all seems to be a big sky is falling thing. We don't cause as much pollution as people think we do. And I think that the more science that comes out, the less that people really lean on the rush to dump all this money in developing certain things when there doesn't seem to be a dire need. I don't care if my next car is hydrogen. Is it fast? Cool. Is it efficient? Great. Is it easy to do maintenance on? Even better. But what we do know is it's very expensive. Hydrogen is very expensive. Again, this incentive for this Honda CR-V FCEV includes a $15,000 hydrogen fuel card. What does that tell you? It tells you it's very expensive to fill your hydrogen fuel cells up. But again, if you want to see or hear more about that, go to the Drive Culture's review of that. Last year, actually, is when John posted, and the link, again, is in the description. That's all I have for you guys today. Well, another month, another closing. If you like what you heard today or like what you watched today, if you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And make sure you go and tell a friend all about it. I want to thank our sponsors, Right Honda and Right Toyota. SparkForge AI from Marcus Foundry, one login, one platform, all under your control, AutoCannon officially licensed Honda and Acura gear. Can't forget Patreon business supporter, Kuya Automotive out of Winter Garden, Florida, Automotive Specialty Tool out of Owings Mills, Maryland, The Lucky Brakes out of Caledonia, Michigan, Beak House Small Home Design out of Ashbury, Virginia and Traverse City, Michigan, and Shaping Success Treasure Valley out of Boise, Idaho. If you're in a position to help the podcast upgrade, you can join the Patreon at patreon.com/hardparkingpodcast, or you can become a member on YouTube. There's a buy me a coffee option there. If you want to support the show, if you get value, if this is one of your favorite shows to watch, why not support it? Special thanks to Mark Stoneman, Catherine Cox, Eddie Ramos, Richard Graysbauer Jones, Bo Jung, Ellis Domina, Drew Bunkley, and Dre Mullins. Questions, comments, and concerns, leave a comment below or email the show info@hardparking. Follow the show on Instagram @hardparkingpod. And make sure you're subscribed to this YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube. And I will see you guys next week.
Now it's stripping time.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Shut up!